The meeting is called to order. We have electronic participation. I think we have 3 members who couldn't make it today. So is there a motion to approve electronic participation?
Motion. Second.
Mr. Connor, Mrs. Lowry, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Dr. Day?
Yes.
Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Now we got solid quorum. 3 members who are electronic, you're welcome to join anytime. Dr. Day, pledge of allegiance.
Please rise for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Day. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Mrs. Lowry,
Second.
Mr. Connor, is there a,
I want to propose that we move the policy updates, which are Section K, into the consent agenda, Section I.
and the black presentation, I think the person is not here, I don't see them. So should we move it to a later day?
That is,
Yeah.
what's the gentleman's name? Dr. Potter. Is Dr. Potter here?
I don't see him.
Okay, then I guess we'll postpone this
So
to,
that will be the second amendment to the agenda?
yeah, we can make it one amendment with 2 items in it.
Is that okay with you to make that motion?
That's, yes, you just amended my motion.
All right. Is there a second to amended motion?
Second.
Mrs. Lowry,
Yeah.
any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
So we're voting to amend
The agenda.
the agenda, and after that, we'll vote to approve the agenda.
Yeah.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Mr. Andrews? Dr. Day?
Yes?
Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul? Motion carries.
Aye. Now we are back to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the amended agenda.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Mr. Connor, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Gilio?
Yes.
Mr. Andrews? Dr. Day?
Yes?
Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Mr. DePaul.
He's not, keep going.
We didn't see him.
You can see
Yeah.
him?
Yeah.
Can you hear us, Mr. DePaul?
An audio problem.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I don't have any comments, so next one is student representative comments. Dr. Copeland.
Good evening, everyone. We'll start with Heritage High School tonight.
Well, I hope everybody had a great February. So this month, Pioneers Outside the Classroom, our DECA students were able to go to DECA States this past weekend. It was a great opportunity for students to compete with some of the top DECA students in the state. Brianna Jones and Deja Bowling were the only team to make it to the semifinals. Congratulations, girls, and great job to all of the DECA students who competed this weekend. Signing Day. 3 very amazing student athletes had their signing days this past month. Gianna Early is taking her incredible talents to Wingate University to continue her passion of volleyball. Tavion Clark is taking his talents to Shepherd University to continue his passion for football. Braden Morgan is taking his talents to CNU to also continue his passion for football. Congratulations to these incredible students, and can't wait to see where their future takes them. So for winter sports, our boys basketball team ended their season with varsity having an overall record of 16-9 and JV having a record of 5-12. Girls basketball ended their season with varsity having an overall record of 7-18 and JV having a record of 22-20. Boys wrestling had states this past weekend and also had the most state placers in school history. Congratulations to Dylan Lamar, Matthew Garland, Bentley Fleshman, and Elijah Erskine for all placing this past weekend. For girls wrestling, congratulations to Audrey Pierce for being the first girl in school history to place in states. For track, the girls are the current 2024-25 3C region champions. Congratulations to them as well. Spring sports such as soccer, tennis, baseball, and many other sports are currently getting ready to start their seasons. So we have some all-district team recognitions. Here are all of the boys and girls basketball players who made all-district for the 2024-25 school year. Senior Marcello Toms and Junior Taylor Coles made first team all-district. Seniors Tavion Clark, Khalees Garvin, and Tyree Slaughter made second team all-district. Freshmen Miles Tyree and Deniza Alexander made honorable mentions for the district. Congratulations to all of them and their accomplishment. Athletic spotlights. BHSL is currently discussing changing girls wrestling from a more of a club sport into a fully sanctioned sport. This would really impact our girls wrestlers in a very positive way. Our track team is currently competing in states today. Their first day was yesterday, and it was a very great start to the competition. Today, we want to continue to wish them the best of luck. Also, a couple hours ago, Brianna Toons became the state champion for triple jump, so congratulations to her. Unity Walk. Our homecoming king and queen were invited by the Lacey organization to kick off this year's 4th Unity Walk and celebration. Also, a huge shout out to Amari Brown, who was also there with the Kumba Dance Ensemble. Great job, Pioneers. Pioneer Theater. This past weekend was the closing weekend for the cast of the Addams Family. We are so proud of you, Pioneer Theater. Great job for putting on another phenomenal show. And last but not least, a huge shout out to the amazing cosmetology teacher, Miss Payne. Thank you for how you have grown the class tremendously and also how you have taken such great care of your students. Thank you and have a great day at number 1 Big Orange Country.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hester. Ms. White, what's going on at Eastie Glass?
Okay, hello, happy March. Hopefully it's gonna start getting a little bit warmer outside soon, but that means it's the end of winter sports. Some of the seasons have already ended. We have a couple people still going, but we've had a really, really strong winter season, as I've said before, with athletes showing a lot of dedication and teamwork. Outdoor track and field had a meet today at Liberty University, putting in a lot of great effort. Boys varsity basketball has had an amazing season at 22-4, and they're back in action tonight against Tuscarora, so go Hilltoppers. Girls varsity basketball also had a great season, finishing 16-9. Our JV teams for sure faced some challenges. Boys basketball finishing at 8-10, and JV girls finishing at 2-11, but they showed a lot of growth throughout the season, and I had been to some of those games, and it's really cool to see the team dynamics just all across the sports. And as we move into spring, boys varsity lacrosse is kicking things off tonight with a scrimmage against Woodbury Forest, and we're really proud of our student athletes and looking forward to a great spring season. Speaking of the boys basketball team, congratulations to exceptional players and coaches who have really earned the hype through dedication and hard work. We're proud to celebrate Coach DJ, who is named District Coach of the Year, JT Osborne, who earned Player of the Year and honors. Adrian Farmer, James Ferguson, and Omar Anderson and Gavin Arthur have all been recognized for outstanding performances, with Adrian winning first team all-district, James and Omar earning second team all-district honors, and Gavin receiving honorable mention all-district. Also happy to announce that the Lady Hilltoppers have also brought in some titles of co-Seminole District champions for the 2024-2025 season, and we're so proud of their success. Congratulations to Destiny Word and Jordan Matthews for earning first team All-District honors, Peyton Haith for securing second team All-District, and Anaya McCoy for getting honorable mention All-District. And then Coach Atrina Thomas has been recognized as Coach of the Year for Leadership. And all of these awards just show how hard our student athletes are working to bring in wins for the school. So it's good to see that. And then a few more Boosters Excellence Awards have been given out as of recent to Anna Waterworth and Sebastian Plock for cross country. This award recognizes their outstanding achievements in school, leadership, and integrity. Both Anna and Sebastian have shown a lot of those qualities throughout the season, and they wanted to thank Coach Van Porter and Assistant Coach Becky Eckert for their guidance and support throughout the season. The Future Center at EC Glass has had a really exciting and productive past month, filled with campus tour field trips, FAFSA nights, SAT prep sessions, visits from local colleges, and Future Fridays. And if you look at the photos on the screen, you can see some of our amazing Hilltoppers getting help doing their applications, submitting their FAFSA, and getting acceptance letters from their dream schools. And it's really contagious when you see someone like getting closer to their dreams. It really motivates you. So it's a really fun place to be in right now. Congratulations to the EC Glass Forensics team for being named Region Runner-Up. So proud of the winners, Alana Odower, Melody Petit, Amory Dopp, Sophia Haupt, Linus Putnam, Harper Weavy, and Lindley Crosby. Each of them earned a spot at the state's tournament in March, and we can't wait to see them on stage again. The EC Glass CTE program wants to give a shout out to Jasmine Ford, a very talented culinary arts student who has a passion for cooking and baking. She loves making donuts and cinnamon rolls from scratch and showing off her work in the kitchen. And after high school, she'd love to work in fashion or continue her work in the kitchen as a chef. So keep up the hard work, Jasmine.
Oh, very good.
I really wish I had some photos to show of the senior trip. It was originally scheduled for late February, but it had to be canceled because of snow. But next month I will be back because the trip is tomorrow, and I'll have some great photos of all of our seniors earning a really well-deserved fun day. And last but not least, the EC Glass Theater Department has just finished casting Footloose. The musical is going to be performed on 2 weekends, so the weekend of May 1st and 2nd, and the week of May 9th and 10th, offering a great opportunity to see our really talented students in action. The cast and crew have been working super hard to bring this show to life already, and we're really excited to share their hard work with everyone. So get your tickets on ecgt.booktix.com and bring your friends and family. It's a really fun show. And that's all I have for this month.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Copeland, thank you. Next one is public comments, Dr. Day.
Okay, I will read the policy statement concerning public comments. Persons desiring to address the school board by voicemail message. Well, let's see. That deadline for that was at 3:30, so we're past that. I'll go on to the part that applies to the people that are here. Persons appearing before the school board will not be allowed to campaign for public office or promote private business ventures, and should not use profanity or vulgar language or gestures, make comments about a public official or an employee that are not related to the public official or employee's official duties, engage in behavior that disrupts the meeting or intimidates others, or address the school board on issues that do not concern the services policies, role, and/or responsibilities of the school board. Individual speakers shall limit their comments to 3 minutes. A speaker representing a group shall limit their comments to 5 minutes. The representative shall identify the group at the beginning of their presentation. A group may have no more than one spokesperson. The total allotted time for public comments at school board meetings is 30 minutes. Voicemail messages to be played are also limited to 3 minutes for individuals and 5 minutes for speakers representing a group. Priority will be given to in-person comments before voicemail messages in the following order. Students, I don't see any on the list. Staff, I don't see any on the list, but we do have one parent, and then following that, we'll have community members. So the parent Who will be our first speaker is Selena Morgan.
And she could 5 minutes.
Yeah, you should identify the group if you're speaking on behalf of a group.
Okay, so, hi, they kind of told me to pivot towards the group. Is that what we're doing?
That's 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Could you, hold on just one.
I think it might be Tinsley.
Remote, could you please put yourself on mute, please? Could you mute yourself? Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, we're good?
Go.
All right, I am Selena Morgan, and I am here to represent the Young Women's Empowerment Academy here in Lynchburg, Virginia. So, good evening, LCS board members, faculty, and staff. My name is Selena, and I am the director for the Young Women's Empowerment Academy for our Lynchburg chapter. In this role, I have the privilege of working with some of our most vulnerable but important young women in our city. Brilliant, resilient students who are navigating not just their academics, but also personal challenges shaped by trauma. Today, I stand before you not only as a director, but also as a community member and parent, deeply invested in the well-being and success of our students. I urge this board to consider making trauma-informed care training a part of professional development for every administrator, teacher, and staff member, a part of LCS, and here's why. Trauma does not stay at home. It walks through our schools every single day. It sits in our classrooms, lingers in our hallways, and impacts the way our students engage with learning. Trauma, rather from poverty, violence, abuse, or neglect, rewires the brain, making it harder for students to focus, regulate emotions, or even feel safe in an environment meant for learning. Yet, far too often, we misinterpret trauma responses as bad behavior. We see defiance where there is fear. We see disengagement where there is exhaustion. We see anger where there is deep pain. When we don't understand trauma, we risk responding in ways that push our students further into isolation, reinforcing the very barriers that prevent them from learning and thriving. Here's what we know. The brain is highly adaptable in childhood, but trauma disrupts healthy development, particularly in areas responsible for emotional regulation, memory, and learning. Chronic stress from trauma keeps the brain in survival mode, making it harder to focus, process information, and engage in problem solving. Trauma affects emotional and social development. Children who have experienced trauma may struggle with trust, relationship, and self-worth. This may interpret social cues, have difficulty forming relationships, or act out aggressively or withdraw completely. Trauma can manifest as challenging behavior. Many students who experience trauma struggle with self-regulation, leading to impulsive actions, defiance, and emotional outbursts. What may look like disrespect, laziness, or defiance is often a child's attempt to protect themselves from further harm, or express unmet emotional needs. Trauma affects learning and academic success, as well as physical health. But here's the good news. Understanding trauma changes everything. When educators are trained in trauma-informed care, they learn how to recognize these signs, respond with empathy, create classrooms where all students feel safe, supported, and ready to learn. They learn how to shift from punishment to intervention, from frustration to understanding, and from labeling students as problems to seeing them as the young people in need of guidance and support. And let's be clear, this is not about compassion, it's about outcome. Research shows that trauma-informed schools reduce disciplinary issues, improve attendance, increase academic success, which are all things LCS could really use. Retrain our staff in trauma-sensitive practices. We don't just help individual students, we create a culture of resilience that our entire school community benefits from. Our teachers, administrators, support staff, and coaches are already doing incredible work, but without the right tools, we are asking them to do the impossible, to support students without fully understanding what they're going through. Trauma-informed care training equips our educators with the knowledge and strategies they need to not only teach, but to heal, empower, and uplift. So today I ask, let's make trauma-informed care training a standard, not an option. Let's ensure that every educator, staff member is equipped to meet our students where they are so we can help them get to where they deserve to be. Just a few stats because it all matters. Currently, Our CPS complaints for current fiscal year roughly is sitting at 978. Our fiscal year ends at June. 978, which is roughly about 13% of LCS's student population. At this very moment, we have 208 children in foster care. Why does this matter? Many of our young adults are placed in alt education situations because of responses, and we're not actually able to see them beyond. I hope that we all understand that our students don't need more punishment. They need understanding. They need advocacy. They need us. Please don't understand, I am not attacking anyone. I am asking for us to consider how we can better support our students. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Robert Floyd. Excuse me, Flood.
Good evening to all of y'all, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak again. It's been a while. I want to address something that's been going on at least about a month now, but I don't see the gentleman here, so I'm going to address it anyway. You know, first of all, I would like to say, you know, to the Dr. DePaul, I think it was, had made a mistake. You know, people are human. Everybody make mistakes sometimes. But, you know, sometimes you have to be punished when you make mistakes. I have made a bunch of them in my life, and I was punished. And when I admit that I had a problem, I admit that something was going on, you know, they dealt with it. I would like to read this right here. First, I would like to thank the board members on the upholding of your standards in doing the right thing by stripping a board member of his duties and violating his position as part of the discipline department. When you can discipline kids, you can send them home, but then you end up doing something that's disgraceful. No one is perfect. Like I said, people make mistakes. I would love to have a conversation with the general and wonder why he done what he done. But when, you know, when you look at things and kids get punished for certain things they do, and they might get a whole year, 6 months, from something less than what somebody disgraced a superintendent, a woman, and on top of that, a black woman. If he really knew what black women went through to get where they are today, I don't think he would have done something like that. And I just feel like that he didn't do it alone. I feel like he had some help. But how do something stay up there for a whole week and nobody see it? It just don't make sense. He admitted that he done it, and he said if the city council tell him to step down, he'll step down. He ain't stepped down yet because somebody told him not to step down. You know, I think about when Dr. Edwards was on vacation and some kids got to fighting at Heritage High School. And they had two city council people wanted to expel her, wanted to fire her because these two kids got to fight. They pushed it for to fire her. She wasn't there. She was on vacation. All of us take vacations. Just think of something happening at your home when you're gone. You think they don't put you out your house? It don't work like that. But when somebody do something that the city council put them there for a reason, and he's in a department to deal with kids with behavior problems, and I think that about 8,000 kids that he oversees. And then you turn around and do something disgraceful to a superintendent. that's gone, if she was here, he might have thought about it. 'Cause I think she can speak for herself. But I think that, he needs to step down. We had a great man there before Dr. Brennan. He was a good man, fair man, equal man. The city council thought he needed to leave, so. But we can't have something like this. We're already divided. How can we come together? Situation like this will keep us divided. And what you think these kids do? They see this. They smart. They intelligent. Yes, they get in trouble. They make mistakes, but they're human beings. And they get punished when they do something. So why can't he get punished when he done something? I don't understand that. But I applaud y'all for what y'all done. Now the city council got to do their part. And I wanted to tell him, I know he's not here, but I had 10 kids outside that he suspended. I wanted to bring in here so he could talk to them. They might still be out there, but I don't know. But I said that to say this. That was a joke. Ain't no kids out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Gary Taylor.
Good afternoon, school board. Dr. Copeland, Dr. Gupta, Dr. Day, rest of the school board members, those that aren't in attendance. My name is Gary Taylor. I'm the founder and president of Citizens for a Better Lynchburg, which is the only bipartisan committee in the entire city of Lynchburg. So we strive to work together from both sides of the aisle, which is very important, to have collaboration to fight the extremists on both sides of the aisle, on the left and the right, in the city of Lynchburg, and in America, for that matter. So tonight my comments are going to be addressed towards the CIP funds mainly, and I'm going to make a couple other comments, but y'all should have my presentation, because I will never get through a 5-minute presentation in 20 minutes. So on the CIP funds, the most important thing going is it looks like there's 10 million, I think, for this next year, 30 and then 20. I think it's 60 total. So the question's going to be, is the vast majority of funds going to be used for one school, or is the vast majority of the funds going to be used for the 11 schools? Okay? So you guys have been bullied and meandered and all kind of stuff by city council and certain groups of schools. So the question, because it sounds like a no-brainer, you have 12 schools. Are you going to dedicate that money to one school, or are you going to dedicate it to the other 11? So I'm not sure if any stakeholder wanting a common sense and best practices solution would say that one is better than 11. So my question is, we know what happened with the school closures, okay? A disaster. People like myself and other people have worked for a decade to get Lynchburg City Schools in line, okay? And we have made zero progress on facilities, zero. So will this board again fail to do what is best for all of Lynchburg City Schools, not just one? We, the people and the parents, hope not that you will this time side with the vast majority instead of the vast minority and get this started in the right direction. So that's the most important thing. You have $10 million. Please use it wisely. And you have a big school district, not just one school. So with that, I want to switch it to the superintendent search. I don't really, I had a chance to meet with the consultants, okay? Myself, at Sandusky, on one of the last meetings. And the only thing I will say, as a lifetime person who evaluates situations, you're lucky if you have a 50% chance of getting a long-term successful superintendent, because the consulting firm you're using doesn't believe in school choice. You can't have successful schools without school choice. That's one foundation of successful school system. The other is elected school boards. If education were a private sector, the federal government would step in and break it up because it's a monopoly. Government is the worst form of business there is. It's not Lynchburg's government, it's government in general is the worst form of inefficient form of business. And business of education is the most out of touch business within that of any business, okay? Because it's not real world. It's not real world, it's academia, okay? I can give you example when you do real world stuff versus academia. Right here in Lynchburg, I saved Lynchburg $4 million by myself when I stepped in, used $5,000 of my own money in 3 months, and was able to help people in the food deserts. So I just wanted to make sure, because I knew I wouldn't get through. So when you're on the side of righteousness, truth, and God, you're on the right side. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Do we have any voicemail messages?
No, sir.
Or any emails?
No, sir.
All right, well, that concludes the public comment period.
Thank you, Dr. Day. Next is consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the revised consent agenda?
Oh, okay, approve.
Mrs. Lowry, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Dr. Day? Any discussion?
I would like to withdraw the Human Resources report from the consent agenda.
Well, technically, that will require a 2/3 vote because you're modifying something that the committee's already voted to approve. You can make that motion, but it will take a 2/3 vote to pass.
Is there a second to that motion?
I didn't discuss it with anyone, so I don't expect to have it. I have a limited number of members here, so I'll withdraw that.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Jalil,
Yes.
Dr. Day,
Yes.
Dr. Gupta,
Yes.
Mrs. Preston,
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie,
Yes.
Mr. Andrews, Mr. DePaul,
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next one is finance report, Dr. Copeland.
Turn it over to Ms. Jamis to go through our financial report this evening.
Good evening, Chairman Gupta, members of the board, and Dr. Copeland. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. It has been a minute. I'll be brief in my remarks this evening to lend more time for further discussions. You have before you the January 31st, 2025 month-end financials. As of January, 58.33% of our fiscal year has passed, so we're barreling on. The percent of revenues collected versus the original adopted revenues was at 43.60% year-to-date. I anticipate that we'll see an influx of additional revenues midstream when VDOE starts pushing some of those out. The amount of expenditures versus original appropriation is at 51.48%. Notice it's almost 7% below what we have past this fiscal year. So on the expenditure side, we're doing relatively well from an analysis perspective. Total expenditures inclusive of encumbrances equates to 94.26%. Remember, those encumbrances may or may not come to fruition
They are set-asides that we make sure that we have what we need to cover set aside for future purposes and for payroll and salaries. So we had a few notable variances this past month of January. Line 21, function 2200. I believe I've addressed this with you before, the attendance and health services personnel. They've used 90.3% of the budget due to expenses related to salary and benefits. So that larger than normal encumbrance is associated with some positions that we need to move into other areas, and we anticipate having that done in the next month. The line 59, function 4600, security services other, has used 93.96% of the budget due to some expenses related to purchase services, such as the Raptor technology system and Sonatrol, which is our badging into the building system, and our watch guard as far as making sure that when alarms go off that someone is in attendance to take care of that. Some other variances that we've discussed in prior reports are our technology, 8100, 8200, 8300, and 8500, and 8600. Those are technology expenses for pupil transportation, for administration, for instructional support. These are all things that we need to use in the classroom. A lot of these are front-loaded because you pay for your software at the beginning of the year, and then you tick off that set aside throughout the rest of the fiscal year. Our statement of revenues, our federal, state, and local collections are 50.8 for federal, 26.7 for state, and 30.3 respectively for local. So the slow disbursements, as I said, will most likely speed up towards the middle part of spring. Although we are blowing it out with miscellaneous and charges for services, they're significantly ahead of our target for the fiscal year. Our miscellaneous collections revenues are at 114.2%, and our charges for services are at 87.6%. On the monthly summary report, our January 2025 versus January 2024 year-to-date balance of health insurance costs reduced 39.9% in this January versus last January. So we're heading in the right direction, and hopefully in the next month or so, the increase of the rates will start equalizing and offsetting the expenses and bringing in the disbursements to offset those. That's the end of my report. I'll entertain any questions that you have at this time. If not, I will.
I have one
Go ahead,
question.
Ms. Sheila.
You said that you would probably move the expenditures into other areas?
So we have some attendance clerks and some of those positions that are actually based out at the schools. But for some reason, they are originally coded to the admin building.
Oh, I see.
And their duties are school-related, so therefore they should be, that expenditure should be in the schools.
Gotcha.
So there are a few positions like that that we're coming across, that we are making an effort to change the distribution code so that they are aligned with where they do their actual work.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of questions.
Absolutely.
Only going back to the healthcare, our premiums have gone up, right, effective January?
Yes, sir, as of January, and so,
The total receipts are less than last year, so why is that? Last year you had $1.384 million in receipts. This year is 1.379. So with the increased premium, the same number of employees, it should be higher number.
so those run a month behind.
Okay.
So we will, that, as I said, that we will start seeing that increase and equalize the expenses, the costs, probably in February or March. Hopefully, if there aren't too many expenses that are outpacing our disbursements. So I anticipate February and March being a different picture, and, you know, taking into account that increase that we did.
The same thing I had for disbursements. Your disbursements are up almost $500,000, right? So it's for December, not for January?
Well, so the bill comes in January, and so I report those expenses in January. But most likely, they take some of the December into effect as well as January. So I anticipate we'll start seeing better numbers come out of that, so.
Well, thank you. And no other questions. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Next one is unfinished business, ad hoc search committee, Dr. Tinsley.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm hearing myself echo in this, so I'm going to keep it short. So we are in the process now of getting the board members and the ad hoc committee members copies of all of the applicants' files. We're going to get those to you on a thumb drive. And on the 13th of March, we are meeting as an ad hoc committee to start going through those, looking at the applicants and ranking them. And may follow that on with a March 17th meeting as well. We'll see how we do on the 13th. And then we will be bringing candidates before the board on March 18th. Confidentiality obviously is a big deal at this point in the process because we are getting down to actual names. So I hope everyone understands that you know, the sensitivity of releasing people's names to the public because of jobs people might be holding at the present time. So we are going to maintain confidentiality of those names at this point. And obviously we'll release a set of names at some point, but we just want the public to understand that you know, folks are in positions now that may have applied and might not want their current employers to know that they've applied somewhere else. So we good pool of applicants though. Very encouraged by the people that we've gotten, and yeah, so we're very optimistic about the future of Lynchburg City Schools.
Dr. Day had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just looking ahead, once, well, I think the plan is on the 18th, the search committee will have a joint meeting with the school board, a closed meeting to preserve that confidentiality. And at that point, we will discuss with the search committee the candidates that they've collected. And I guess McPherson and Jacobson will, well, I don't know if it's McPherson and Jacobson or the search committee will make some recommendations about finalists, and then the board will decide what its final finalists are.
Right.
Is that correct so far?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, so we're going to make our recommendations to the board. You all, you're going to have the documents at the same time the ad hoc committee does. So, you know, sometime before the 13th, we'd love to have your feedback on any of the candidates, any you know, candidates that you prefer, those that you don't, reasons why, that kind of thing. But we're going to come up with our suggestions. We'll bring those to the board on the 18th, as you say, in a closed session, and at that point, finalize that list of finalists, and then after that, reach out and start setting up the interviews.
Do you want feedback from individual school board members by the 13th, did I understand?
Yeah, if you have feedback by the 13th would be great, because we're going to have a meeting on the evening of the 13th to discuss our suggestions. But of course, we're all going to be together in that joint meeting on the 18th as well, so we can talk through any issues at that point as well.
And my other question is, once the board has decided on its finalists, that too needs to remain confidential to protect those individuals in their current employment situations. How will how will the board conduct interviews with the finalists? Will we bring them here physically? Will it be an electronic interview of some kind? How will that work?
So let me, can I take it over here from Dr. Tinsley? So the process we'll be doing is all of you have a flash drive with all the information, so it's protected. Please do not share that with anybody. And you, 18th, we'll have a joint meeting where we'll have a closed session. We don't need staff that day, Dr. Copeland. We'll go into a closed session and we'll go through each of the candidates. But the search committee will have, or the through consultants will present their 5. We can look at it if any additions or deletions need to happen at that point in time. And then at that time, we'll decide how many of those candidates we want to bring on the ground, because it involves cost. So the search will make us recommendations for 5. Are we bringing all 5? Are we bringing 3? And that decision we'll make on 18th. And once the decision is made, we'll go from there, involving how do we maintain confidentiality till they come on ground.
So are you saying until then, we don't know how we're going to conduct
Yeah,
the
we'll-
interviews?
Yeah, we'll, the process will, for how many are coming,
That's when we'll decide?
we'll decide on.
Okay, all right. That's what I was trying to
Yeah.
resolve.
The 18th closed session will be the day. Yes, sir.
One time I was offered a job across country, and they wanted me to consider flying over just for the consideration of a secondary interview. And I did not want to pay for the plane flight. I wanted them to cover it if they were really willing to hire me. And they weren't willing to do that. And so it didn't pan out. Do we have any problems with the distance of people?
I think in the past, we have covered the travel expenses when you bring a candidate on ground. That's why we have to be mindful, how many do we invite? So the cost factor is involved. And we gotta
Right,
figure out-
and
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. Mark?
Oh, you're cutting in and out.
Your audio's off.
You'll have to start over.
You can stop your car and then speak, so you, I mean,
It's the network connection.
he's driving.
Yeah. Yeah, we couldn't hear that.
So we'll have to look at, that's why 18th closed session is important.
Okay.
How much money do we have and how do we go from there? Okay? Other questions for Dr., I think we lost him, right? Is he there? Are you there?
Well, we can't hear him at least.
But please make sure all of you have this and you sign the confidentiality piece of paper with Ms. Day, right? All these people you have given flash drives to, so you have to maintain absolute confidentiality.
Right.
All right, we move to the next item, City Council School Board Joint Task Force, Dr. Day.
Okay, let's see. So, you may recall that on January 7th, we, the board, resolved to send a letter to City Council requesting a joint meeting of our two bodies to try to reach a consensus regarding our budget. That joint meeting took place on February 18th, at the end of which the mayor and board chair appointed a 4-member committee consisting of myself, Mrs. Lowry, and city council members Feraldi and Reed, with myself and Mr. Feraldi serving as co-chairs. I am going to refer to this as the Joint Task Force, although at the time it was appointed, no name was given to it. After that joint meeting concluded, the mayor added Councilmember Mischins to the committee, and Dr. Gupta added Mr. Connor. Mrs. Reed declined to serve, and so the mayor replaced her with Mr. Wilder. Now, having co-chairs of a committee is an awkward arrangement. I noticed the other day that Robert's Rules advises against it. But regardless, that is the state of affairs, and I will do my best to work in concert with my co-chair to conduct the committee's business. So that this new committee, the Joint Task Force, or JTF, will met for the first time on February 27th. The city manager's office offered a statement of purpose, but the committee adopted a simplified general statement of purpose, and it's in the file JTF guidelines that's attached to tonight's agenda if you want to see what it actually consists of. I want to point out that this joint task force will be short-lived. Currently, it plans to meet just 4 more times and will expire no later than June 30th. We then turned our attention to rules of procedure. We voted to follow Robert's Rules of Order plus one special rule, which is that when votes are taken, everyone must vote. In other words, no abstentions are allowed unless a member has a genuine conflict of interest or a motion passes by consent. And we agreed that I would be the presiding officer at all of our meetings, but I would not vote unless it's necessary to break a tie. So there is a inequality between the co-chairs. I have an advantage in the sense that I conduct the meeting and recognize speakers and so forth, and Mr. Feraldi has an advantage in that he's the only co-chair that can vote, unless there's a tie among the remaining voting members present. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, March 12th at 5 p.m. at the ITC building, not March 13th, as was indicated in the city manager's original document. The remaining meetings will be on March 27th, April 10th, and April 29th. And that last one is intended to be a joint school board city council meeting at which the Joint Task Force hopes to be able to report a recommendation. The school board's Student Discipline Committee will schedule any hearings or meetings for the weeks of March 27 and April 10th in order to avoid Thursdays. Otherwise, Mr. Connor and myself would have a conflict. The following items were indicated by the committee members at our meeting as things they want the Joint Task Force to consider. Close-to-home zoning, which schools will be open for the 25-26 school year, alternate education facilities, school enrollments, capacities, and student locations, school plans consistent with the city's proposed CIP plan, and the possibility of state funds to help support construction costs. We did discuss briefly the city manager's proposed CIP plan and noted the gap between what it allots to the schools and what our requested CIP funding is. At our next meeting, the intent is that the LCS administration will provide a summary of the major maintenance and renovation needs of our school buildings, and city staff offered to make some suggestions about how we might assess school enrollments, capacities, and student location, all intended to provide information to input our effort to try to come together and form a plan going forward that both the city and the school can agree to. Now, I want to clarify for the public that the purpose of this committee is to try to resolve the impasse that we seem to be perpetually in, namely that the school board makes plans which cannot be carried out because city council is unable to provide necessary funds. Now, that is not meant to be a casting of blame. It's simply what we have experienced. We seem to be in that situation again. The board's plan to rebuild Sandusky does not appear, at least to me, possible based on the city's draft CIP plan for 2025 through 2030. So we are probably forced to reconsider yet again. I understand if those who are passionate about a new Sandusky are frustrated that the issue seems to be up in the air once more. I understand that. The hope for this committee is that it will chart a way forward that both bodies can support so we can end the stalemate and move forward. That's what I have to report.
Questions for Dr. Day?
Yes, questions.
None. I had a request, Dr. Day, from all three of you. Picking three of you was to, there's a first-year member, there's a second-year member, and a third-year member on this task force. So we continue that historical knowledge future, because we have turnover, so Dr. Day is the senior most, and Mrs. Lowry, and then Mr. But the focus should be the kids, not the individual personality. That's my humble request to all three of you, if you can maintain the focus on the kid, because we are here to provide quality and a safe environment, learning environment for our kids. It's not about me, it's not about you, it's not about you, it's not about you. So hopefully, as we meet and we move forward, the focus is on the child, and they should be the forefront of every discussion we do. That's my humble request to you, sir, as your
I
co-chair.
understand. May I make one more
Yes, sir.
further comment? I want to also make it clear that this committee has no formal power to decide anything. It cannot dictate the school board's policy. It cannot dictate the city's budget. All it proposes to do is try to come up with a recommendation that we think both bodies will support. But then it's up to the two bodies, the school board and the city, if they really are going to support that recommendation or not. We're simply trying to identify a middle ground.
Yes.
That's all. Yes.
And that was something I was concerned with, because it being informal made it very similar to the two members of this board meeting with two city council members on a regular basis. It's very informal. The discussions led to what we have, and now it's going to be a very similar format. So I didn't think it would be too much different in its outcome, unless you want to comment on the difference.
Well, it was Dr. Gupta's initial suggestion that it be 2 and 2. And then the mayor, for reasons that were not explained to me, we can only speculate, decided to add a third member. And then to balance it, Dr. Gupta added a third member as well.
3 members make it a public announcement, so it is under the FOIA regulations.
Right.
2 goes under the radar screen. So 3 makes it legally required to announce that public where they'll meeting, what the agenda will be, which are not the requirements. The objective was not to defy those things, but it made, to me, that has not been told, but to me it made sense to have 3 members from each. So then it's a public meeting. Good? Go ahead.
It is a public meeting, and I happen to go to
Yes.
to that public meeting. But my question to you is, do we have any restrictions as far as our participation in that meeting? If I had an idea, a suggestion, a question, a comment, am I allowed to make that, or do I need to make it privately to somebody else?
I think you would need to make it directly to one of, or all of the 3 of us who represent the school board on the committee. We have not put a public comment into the agenda for those meetings. It's just sort of brainstorming of our 2 bodies together. But I think the 3 of us would welcome any input from both fellow board members and the community. And I certainly would expect that the 3 individuals from the city side would likewise welcome input from the community or from other school board members.
During the meeting, you're saying, or
I'm sorry?
Beforehand.
Yes, yeah, there's no public comment period at these meetings.
you're saying yes to me or yes to?
Hmm?
Are you saying
To
yes to
you.
me or yes to her?
To you.
Well, you just asked, so I'm responding to
So
you.
during the meeting?
Yes, yes. Oh, outside of the meeting, you can say anything you want to anybody you want. Try to be polite, though.
Good?
Yeah, and that's,
I have one.
yes.
Do we need to do anything else to make sure that we distinguish this task force from whatever the city thought it, because it seemed like they thought it was something else that they voted on back in
Lifelong,
November.
lifelong community.
That's what I'm,
And I think there's still some correspondence going back and forth, like there's confusion. But this task force is not in any way related to that.
That's why I think it was important that the first thing we did is adopt a statement of purpose to clarify what this committee understands its purpose to be. Now, As you recall, that was not voted unanimously by the assembled 6 people. It was 5-1.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Day. Next one is new business, Heritage Park property transfer, Dr. Copeland.
I'd like to ask Dr. Rodica to make this presentation.
Yes, sir. Good evening, members of the board. Thank you, Dr. Copeland. On January 26, 2024, the Finance and Facilities Committee reviewed a request from the City Department of Parks and Recreation to transfer 2 parcels of property from school division control, which of course is also owned by the city, back to city control for the purpose of developing 2 properties for city park use. Those properties were at Perrymont, or adjacent to Perrymont Elementary School, as well as the 2 heritage campuses. The purpose of that was, again, to develop a public park, but that would be used both for certainly the school community, but also the larger community as well. As an opportunity to invest in those spaces. Perrymont in particular, there's been a long-term plan for that project, as well as some developing ideas for the Heritage Park as well. At that time, the Finance and Facilities Committee recommended unanimously to approve that transfer. There were a number of things on the agenda that came up over the next couple of months, and then the Perrymont Park came up over the summer. The school board unanimously approved to transfer that property to the city, and then now we're ready to take a look at the Heritage Property Park. One of the issues that we wanted to make sure was that when the heritage community needs to use the property, it is available to them, and our colleagues at the Department of Parks and Recreation have assured us that certainly the heritage community would have priority over the property, well, to be able to use the property as needed. But as it exists right now, this provides an opportunity for the Parks and Recreation Department to invest in that space, make it an even better use than it is now, but also, again, would still be adjacent to the property. Mr. Wyatt Woody is here. He's the Director of Parks and Recreation, and certainly would take any questions you might have about this this transfer. But essentially, the property, if you know the property, the area of the campus, sort of on the other side of the creek, would then be transferred to the city to be maintained by them. Again, we've had a great partnership with them, and want to continue that.
Is that the property where the old practice fields and stuff used to be?
Yeah,
Come in off of Leesville Road?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And I'm assuming Mr. Beatty is fine, right? He's sitting in the audience, so. Yeah. Is there go ahead.
My only question would be, what would be the process of asking for using of the land when Heritage needs it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a really close partnership with the City Parks Rec Department for a number of properties. One of them, of course, being City Stadium for various athletic events. And I'm sure that we would continue to have the same process. We'll just use that. We have a great relationship. We'll continue that. I don't know that we necessarily need to have anything formal, but it is a long-standing thing that we've been doing.
Is there a motion to approve it?
I have one question.
Mrs. Lowry.
Just curious, will we have a fence or something along the school line just so nobody can walk on school campus from that, or does that matter?
We haven't planned for that, and I don't believe that's in the design. We also haven't done that at Perrymont or other
Okay.
places where we have park property, but.
Yeah, well, the schools are open. I mean, people can walk on them. Okay, I'm good.
I walked that place, and Dr. Coleman is in the audience. We walked that place quite a bit. So there's like a metal gate at the on the Leesville Road side.
Oh, okay.
And it's open only from sunrise to sunset. That's what it says up there right now. It may change later on, but right now it says on the board, open only from sunset to, and the public still uses it. I've seen cars.
Okay, all right.
Is there a motion to approve it?
Motion.
Mr. Connor?
Second.
Mrs. Lowry? Any other further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Jalil?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes? Dr. Day?
Yes?
Dr. Gupta?
Yes.
Mrs. Preston?
Yes.
Mr. DePaul?
Yes.
Mrs. Laurie?
Yes.
Dr. Tinsley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next one is cell phone policy update. Dr. Copeland.
Call Dr. Brown to the podium. He's going to provide an update after 2 months of the new cell phone policy. He's conducted a survey, so he's got some data to share relative to that. And we have our secondary principals here to provide input on how things are going on their buildings. Dr. Brown.
Good evening, everyone. I hope everybody's having a wonderful evening. It's good to see you all. I won't be before you long today because I know this desire of the board to speak with our principals regarding our cell phone implementation for our cell phone policy. Did want to go over a few things before we turn it over to our principals to give you an opportunity to ask some questions and do a Q&A with them. And we will get to that just momentarily. We are providing a handout for some survey results that we sent out, and you were just now getting that because fresh off the press, we wanted to allow as much time as possible for respondents, and we're pleased with the survey results that we got. So just from a general overview, the second slide shows the amazing work that our communications team, Austin Journey, did to announce and make sure that our school community was aware of the cell phone policy changes. Again, the communication team led by Austin Journey did a wonderful job, and started pretty much day one with updates about the announcement of the policy, did a notification to families, students, and staff, sent a press release and updates on our website. Then followed that, we had a principals meeting where I made principals aware of the changes and the implementation strategy moving forward. They started with the Off and Away All Day campaign, and then provided several other updates, as you can see there on slide 2. Slide 3 talks to our student survey, and I'm just going to do a real brief overview and oversight. If you have any questions, feel free to ask those. But we wanted to send a simple survey out with just 4 quick questions for our students, staff, and parents to get an idea of what the perception was. Again, there's some research coming out across the nation that is the cell phone, decreased cell phone use is improving mental health for students, grades, academics, school behavior, but we wanted to see what was specific to Lynchburg. Again, not a peer-reviewed study at all, but this is something that's the perception of our parents. So we're pleased to announce we had 1,400 students take the survey, which is a good sample size. 4 quick questions that focused on the ability to focus in class was what did it do to students' social life, their perceived social life change, any changes on their stress and anxiety, and any changes, how it impacted their academic performance. The next slide shows the first 2 questions, the impact on their social life and their ability to focus in class. And you can see the yellow indicates that there was no change, so it wasn't really a preference. We did see that if students did have a preference, they were slightly more negative towards the impacts on their social life and the ability to focus in class. As you can see indicated by the red and orange bars. Blue indicates a positive impact on students. And the next slide shows the impact of student perception on their stress and anxiety level and their academic performance. Again, vast majority of students felt like there was no change, no impact either way, positive or negative. The one that was more significant is the students that reported a feeling felt that did increase their stress and anxiety level a lot more. I have a lot of theories and thoughts on that. I will hold those until we have a greater discussion, but I think it's important to realize it's a national problem, worldwide, global issue of students and cell phone usage, and they use it a lot, and the addiction to cell phones, and I believe some of that is what we see happening there. Mm-hmm. The next slide will show the parent survey, which we're pleased with that response rate as well. We had almost 500 parents, 468 parents respond. 3 quick questions that talk to social interactions, academic performance, and students' mental health. And the next slide shows the impacts of that. Mirrored the student survey pretty closely. The vast majority of parents felt it didn't have any impact, but if they did have a opinion one way or the other on mental health, it was slightly more negative. It's a little bit, just slightly more positive for their academic performance and social interaction, but again, vast majority didn't have an opinion either way. The last one is we surveyed educators. We only had 69 educators fill out the survey, and we sent it multiple times, and principals reminded staff and mirrored the same questions. This was interesting because the next slide shows for engagement and focus and student performance on academics, teachers felt that they had a more positive impact on students' ability to engage and focus and their academic performance. The next slide shows that in regards to their socialization and impact on mental health, teachers felt generally it did impact their social impact and engagement in a positive way in non-instructional things, and pretty neutral but slightly positive on their impact on mental health. So in summary, parents and students felt a little bit more neutral about the policy changes. If they did have an opinion, it tended to be a little bit more towards a negative impact. Teachers felt that the policy, those that responded felt that the policy was more positive and had a more positive impact and effect. Those were pretty much all of the things I wanted to go over with you all. At this time, I can ask our principals or secondary principals to come up, and we can do a quick Q&A and go from there. So,
Dr. Brown?
Yes.
I have a comment for you. Just by looking at that and being a teacher, to me, that teacher part was so important because they're the ones giving instruction.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if not all students filled it out, not all teachers filled it out, but the ones that filled it out, seems like if I'm able to instruct and the kids can be where they need to be and better prepared for testing and class work and et cetera, that's a good thing.
And I think Dr. Lee sent out a survey before I sent this one to her staff as well. And she can speak to that and mirrors that sentiment.
Yeah.
So definitely some of what you said reflected in the survey for our teachers, how we collaborated, my colleagues and I. We discussed some of our concerns with how this looks in the classroom and the teacher perception of this. So my school was used as a sample, just gathering all of our ideas around this. And I have about 40 classroom teachers. I had 24 teachers to respond to the school survey based on the conversations that I've had with my colleagues behind me. And 79% of my teachers who completed this survey said they feel that the updated cell phone policy, they have seen improvements in student attention and focus in the classroom. Of those same participants, I asked them, do you feel that the updated cell policy, you have seen less social media drama pouring into the classroom? And overwhelmingly, 75% of our teachers said they have seen an improvement with a decrease in social media drama spilling over in the classroom. Teachers were uncertain about this because they don't know if the students are just holding the cell phones or if they're truly putting them in the locker, but teachers did report, 64% reported that they do not see the cell phones in their classroom. So one is making an assumption that they're leaving them in the lockers, or they're just not engaging with them when they're in the classroom. And finally, on this survey, they were asked, with the updated cell phone policy, do you feel students are more responsible with their cell phone usage? And 72% of teachers reported that they are seeing more student responsibility in regards to inappropriate cell phone usage. And that, again, was based on our conversations about what we are looking for in the classroom as a result of this, and I was the sample representing all of us.
Very nice.
I mean, Chief, any of the principals have any comments to make? Thank you for all you do for our kids.
Yes.
We appreciate everything you guys do
Yes,
in there.
all of it. Yes.
Thank you, and Dr. Brown, you too, man. You do an amazing job. So don't let people stop you from doing what you're doing. Any other, I know board members have, but any principals have any comments to add on to? No? All right, Mr. Connor, go ahead. Sir.
Headsets, earpieces, we're seeing them, you know.
So one thing that we did before, thank you to Lynchburg City Schools because they helped us with the foundation of rolling out this policy by being proactive before January 6th and communicating through Austin's office what is coming for our families. And so one thing that we did, we met with Dr. Brown about this before January 6th, and we also met after this. So we sent out in some form of on our websites or on our school social media pages, we developed graphics for our families and shared this out, and we understand that this is a technology policy not limited to cell phones, so it does say cell phones, smart watches, headphones, meaning wireless, earphones, gaming devices, and personal laptops. And so this is what graphics similar to this have been presented to students and families from all secondary schools.
Dr. Day.
So I think we all realized when we decided to put this policy in place that it was going to be a difficult adjustment for everybody, for you and your staff as well as the students. So I guess I have a couple questions. How difficult has it been? And do you feel like that difficulty is easing up? Are both your staff and your students becoming a bit more comfortable with it? What do you think?
It's definitely been a challenge. I mean, the headsets particularly, because it's a habit. The kids wear them all the time, and most of the time they listen to music or different types of things. And so that's been the biggest challenge. The cell phones have not been as much of a problem. Still, kids break rules. That's what they do from time to time. But you still work with them. You try to have conversations with them and try to encourage them to do the right things. Mm-hmm. But the headsets have been the biggest issue, particularly between classes. During class, maybe not so much, but between classes, because kids get out of class and they just they want to decompress a little bit, and kind of be in their own world. Some kids feel like they're in a safe space by having their headphones. And so, again, we try to encourage them, try to tell them to take them off, call parents, have those conversations. But that's been the biggest challenge, particularly start of the year. You have no cell phones, but then starting January, no headphones, and so that's been the biggest adjustment. And they're still adjusting to it, still struggling with it, but I think they'll eventually get on track at some point.
Yeah, I'd echo those same thoughts. I think the pre-planning that went into it was more our strategy at EC Glass, and so teachers have some additional duties or some change duties as a result, and so there was an adjustment period for that. It's flowing really well now, though, but I would echo to say the headphones, probably more than the cell phones, have been some of the issues, but our kids have responded very positively to the change, better than I anticipated. You anticipate the worst and plan for the worst, but they've been great. So,
Dr. Rule, could you share a little bit about your cafeteria gaming situation and all that?
Yeah, so if anybody, I'm not undefeated yet, but we have lots of board games, Tapple, Farkle, Uno. Uno's the big win, and there's all kinds of Uno right now. So if you're ever up for a game of Uno, I'm sure there's some willing students to challenge you. So
I'll be there then. I love it.
That's right. Bring it 11 to 12:30. Come join me.
Let me write that down.
So that connects to what my next question is going to be, because I have read comments from staff in other districts that say they have observed more interactions between and among students, between classes, since cell phones have been suppressed, if I can use that language. Have you observed that? Do you see more student interaction that's not electronic? Have you observed that, do you think?
I'd say the cafeteria is a little louder.
It's louder?
Which is fine. You want kids to socialize and you want kids to interact with one another. Yeah. So I would say that's the one good thing that happens, is that there's more conversations, there's more interactions with students, between students, amongst each other. So that's my part in it.
Mr. Jalil.
We heard a lot of social data, the surveys. Do we have any hard data from tests, scores, things like that yet?
Too early.
Yeah, I think we're really in the early stages of this, and we are planning with Mr. Yarborough on doing some follow-up data. But if you think about it, we just implemented this in January, and then we had a lot of snow. So thank you, Dr. Wodica, for making the snow this year. So I think it's really early to look at that, but that is something that, we'll take a look at. But also, so many factors with the, involving test scores and whether it's instruction or remediation, different programs. And so we can look for correlation. And I know you all understand all that, but also Mr. Yarborough may have comments on that.
Yeah, what he said is true. It's so early. We changed to a straight 7 schedule this year. I mean, there's so many variables that we'd have to start looking at kids who had cell phone issues last year and how those behaviors changed. So there are some things we've kind of just started to discuss about we'd like to track, but I would be foolish to come up here and say we could make a statement that says too much of anything. Even the survey that we sent out is pretty subjective. It's a pretty small group. The error rates are a little higher than I would like, but also people kind of respond with what they were hoping for, I think, sometimes. So I'm hoping that the teacher response continues to be that way, but I don't know that I would be cautious to say that says we're moving the needle too much, because a lot of that's just people's opinion still.
But there is some work to do with that as we move forward, and that'll be work that we'll probably be working on this summer based on what gets requested.
Can you identify one or two tests or events that you can say definitely will correspond to this impact?
You know, I think we can look at SOL scores at the high school in general. I think really what's going to be most curious is to look at kids who had repeated cell phone violations or those types of ideas and seeing the impact on their specific progress. Because for kids who have never had a violation, anything they do, we don't really know if we're measuring the impact of that or not. There's a lot of work to be done. And there's a lot of stuff being done at the national level when they're doing studies, but these are people with teams of data scientists, and it's just me. So, but yeah, we'd love to be able to come back this summer and say, here's where we feel like we're seeing some progress. We want to dig deeper. Here's some things that are hard to track, and we want to start to put some pieces in place to make that easier to track.
Thank you.
I have a
Any,
question.
members, go ahead.
So all of us received an email from someone that said that because in the surveys, it all didn't say 100%. So my question is, for either teachers that you're having trouble getting on board with this or allowing things to happen, how is that coming along to try to reel that in?
Are you asking about teachers that maybe are not adhering to the policy?
Yeah, pretty much. That's what the letter we all
We've-
received said.
Sure, we've shared with teachers that if we walk in, our expectations have been very clear.
Mhm.
If you're not following those expectations, then that's a conversation or necessary personnel action. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we try to encourage our teachers to be good teammates, and that's the way we categorize it. If one teacher is enforcing it and another teacher is not, you're not being a good teammate to the teacher that is enforcing it. So we just try to be consistent with it and just try to do our best to ensure consistency across the board.
Yeah, because I was thinking, as a teacher, it's like we're all supposed to get the kids to be productive human beings in society. And if we teach them to, or allow them to just ignore the rules, what will they do in their jobs? You know, that would be really bad. So you don't want to set that precedent. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that fits in perfectly with our philosophy on high care, high expectation. And you know, I think a lot of times teachers are letting kids use those cell phones in class. They have high care, but really not holding those expectations up. And you don't want them just yelling at kids and telling them, give me your phone all the time without letting them know that they care. It's got to connect to why this is important and why we're doing this, and sharing the why behind the policy.
Hold on just for one. Let me ask the remote members, any questions from the 3 remote members?
I have none.
All right. Mr. Andrews, Mr. DePaul?
I'm just listening.
All right. Mr. Conrad, go ahead.
I'm getting feedback from students that they feel offended, I might not be the right word, that their cell phones are away, but the teachers are freely using them during class. And they feel like if it's good for the goose. So if y'all have any experience, heard from students saying, why are the teachers freely allowed to use their cell phones and we're not allowed to touch them?
I have not.
The students will talk to me if they see my cell phone out and say, off and away, Dr. Rule.
I have heard that feedback from, nephews, nieces,
Sure.
church members.
Sure.
They're saying that, they may not express it, but they do feel that some of the teachers are start the test and they're immediately on their phone.
Can I comment to that?
That was Mr. DePaul.
Go ahead, Mr. DePaul.
Thank you. Much in the same way as adults are allowed to do things that young people are not, I don't know if that is really an issue. If a parent or if a teacher or an administrator uses anything that a student's not entitled to use, I don't think that isn't even an issue for to be considered in this. They may perceive it. A child or a student may perceive an issue of unfairness, but the reality is there's a lot of things adults can do that students or children cannot. There's a lot of things that are liberties that adults enjoy that people under a certain age do not. So that's I don't find that to be a although some of you might, that my opinion is I don't find that to be a valid concern.
Other questions for, go ahead and.
I'm just curious, has it ever been communicated since it started that we're not trying, to the students, that we're not trying to create an antagonistic relationship between any teachers and students on this one issue?
Okay.
And one of the reasons is because we don't want your usage of the phones to get a teacher in trouble. Has that, anything like that idea been communicated at all? To put some responsibility on the students to take care of their teachers?
About the teachers on their phone, or about the
Yeah,
students
this-
knowing the why behind the policy for them?
The students, because it gives them a little bit of the burden or the responsibility to say, hey, I want to take care of my teacher, not to get my teacher in trouble. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think we've approached it from that angle as, don't get your teacher in trouble because, they have bosses.
There's
and
an
things
idea
like
to
that.
think through, okay.
But that's something we can think through.
Being motivated to
That
get their phone back
opportunity,
out.
Talk about it.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Thank you for all.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for
Thank you.
taking this seriously. I
Appreciate
know
it.
it's
Let's
been
give them a
difficult
round of
thing.
applause. Thank you.
If I can say one thing, I just want to give a shout out to our girls track team. They just won the state championship.
That's great. That's great.
Next is school board member reports. Gov School, Mrs. Lowry.
Okay, that will be tomorrow.
Right, excellent. Laurel, Mrs. Lowry.
And next meeting is May 7th. I believe the last meeting I already shared the Laurel stuff, so.
The STEM Academy, Mr. Connor.
They had a board meeting on the 28th of January, but unfortunately, I was in Richmond at the VSBA legislative, so I missed that. I wasn't even able to join it electronically, but I will be at the next one. But she did send something out that she had 20 STEM applications from Lynchburg City Schools, and there was an additional seat available at a cost of $5,900, and I think $5,920. And I sent something to the chairman to see if something we'd be interested in, and he shot it back to me as, we're in the middle of a budget process, so we wouldn't be interested. But what I understand, it was a junior seat that might not even continue into senior year. So I didn't think it was something that, because you kind of got the same information back. But the Accelerate STEM Academy is doing quite well, getting a lot of input.
Want to take the finance and facilities too? Next one.
We're right in the process, being on the joint task force, and we're in the process. I think we'll really get into our next finance meeting after the next
Thank you.
School board meeting.
Thank you. LSER, Mr. Jalil.
We made some decisions on policies that we would like to present to the board at some point, but we were missing members, so I think we'll do that when we have more of a consensus on these different policies that Richmond was coming out with, so nothing new other than that.
Academic success, Mrs. Lowry.
Okay, at our last meeting, we're working on a teacher treasure box. And I'm working on a grid for that, and hopefully we can get that out by this summer, and teachers, whether veterans or working teachers, can put their names in if they want to be it's a help kind of thing, volunteer for many different subject areas. Also, we're waiting on math textbooks updates. Right now, only one's out. They are not mandatory, I found out from the VDOE, because they are not aligned with the SOLs, the Virginia SOLs. We can still choose, but it'll be more like if you get something and then you look at our SOLs and then we pick from what we're using. So, also, we're checking on senior night to have the Legacy and the Blue Ridge Pregnancy Center to be there to share information with students. Also waiting on ideas from teachers at their PLCs that we're having the admin send out for teachers to look at to help the Virginia Secretary of Education in Virginia for ideas. She's open for ideas for change. She knows that we need numbers, but she knows there needs to be some adjustments in the SOL so kids have more time to learn. So she knows it's not perfect, and so they're open. We got some information from I Promise Information that was received, and we will look at that at the next meeting.
Thank you. Pi, Mr. Andrews or Dr. Tinsley?
Yeah, I don't think we have anything significant to report at this time.
Right. Thank you. Ed Foundation, Ms.
Nothing new.
Beacon of Hope, Mr. Andrews or Mrs. Preston?
The Beacon of Hope Future Center is hosting a college night for juniors this Wednesday from 6:30 to 7. The event is designed to inform students and their families about post-graduation opportunities, and representatives from local colleges, businesses, and the military will be in attendance. Dinner is going to be provided for those that are in attendance, and there will be a chance to enter a $1,000 scholarship raffle. Applications are now open for their summer internship programs for rising juniors and seniors. Students will be placed in a month-long paid internship with companies across the Lynchburg area, and some internship business partners include places like Centra Health, Framatome, and the Free Clinic. Our Commonwealth Scholarship application is closed, and recipients can receive up to $5,000 to attend an accredited 2-year, 4-year college or trade or technical school in Virginia. The class of 2025 recipients will be announced next month. And we are continuing the Career Acceleration Program, reaching out to Lynchburg City graduates from 2012 and beyond, and their parents and guardians to support their return to school, upskilling, career advancement services, including coaching, resume writing, interview preparation, workshops, and so forth.
What time is the dinner? Meeting?
I'm sorry?
What time is the dinner or the meeting?
The dinner is at it's 5:30 to 7. I'm not sure which comes first, but
Going back to at Foundation, they have their superintendent's breakfast on March 13th. Oh, you'll mention, okay. I just wanted to make sure that I'll be out of country from 9th through 16th, so Dr. Day will be introducing the superintendent in that event. Right. So next one is Dr. Copeland, interim, go ahead.
So start with congratulations for the Heritage High School girls track team for another indoor state championship. I should have caught Mr. Beatty before he left out to get the count of how many they've won in the past couple of years. It's a bunch. It's a bunch. For the first time in, I think, wrestling history across the state, the 3A, 4A championships were actually held in school buildings, and Heritage High School was the host for the 3A wrestling championships this past Saturday. I think they started at 5 a.m. in the morning with weigh-ins and measurements and concluded sometime around 9 p.m. Over 1,000 folks came through there. As you heard Ms. Hester talk about, a great showing by the Heritage High School wrestling team in placing so many students in the top 6 of the state. So that was a huge event. Spring athletics is in full swing. I'll try to mention them all, but it is the busiest time of the year for high school and middle school athletics, with softball, baseball, tennis, track, soccer, lacrosse.
Golf.
Golf, fall or spring?
Fall, okay.
I think that's it for spring, but when you think about our high school campuses, you can have soccer games, baseball games, softball games, all going on campus at the same time. If you live close to one of those, you might hear the crowds in the neighborhoods, which is always a great sound. Next Thursday morning at 7:30 is Breakfast with the Superintendent, sponsored by the Education Foundation. I hope you will all be there. The tease is you'll learn something about your interim superintendent that you didn't know before. It is all about fine arts and the importance that fine arts have on the education and what we do here in Lynchburg. An additional fine arts plug, school theater productions have been going on at middle schools and high schools for really the last 2 months. I think we've kind of hit a lull, but Dunbar just finished a play. Heritage finished a play. I think Lincoln and Sandusky are all in a performance cycle. So it's a very, very busy time, lots of opportunities to get out there and see some great performers. Even our orchestra teacher, Mr. Stallcup, was on stage in the Addams family and did an amazing job with the part that he played. So it's great to see all of those going, and that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. The board member comments, Mr. Connor,
Nothing today.
Mr. Jalil.
I was thankful to briefly attend a community dinner last week. It was delicious again. I enjoyed the menu choices and the way that it was put together, and with a friendly face as well, serving it. So I'm looking forward to the next one. Hope we can have even more people come out for that one. I didn't get the numbers. They didn't know.
I think 220.
Great.
This was about 50 more than last time.
Wonderful. That's fantastic.
Dr. Day.
I don't think I have anything to add, other than to reinforce the issue that I think Mrs. Preston brought up before, that if you have thoughts or suggestions you want the three of us to take to this joint task force, please do communicate them to us. It is going to be a challenge. We don't have a lot of time.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Preston?
Nothing. Thank you.
Mrs. Lowry?
I want to thank Mr. Nagy at CVCC. Invited me to talk to the kids at our dual enrollment students at CVCC. They had a lot of good questions. Also to thank you to Mrs. Cooley, who showed me around at the Restorative Academy today at Bass. I went to see Peter Pan on Sunday, and the kids at Lincoln Middle did an amazing job. Saw some Paul Monroe alum. And my own children went through Dunbar and high school, both my girls, all the years through theater. So I've seen a lot of plays, but anyways. So, and I'm starting to set schedules for reading to classes for the next 2 to 3 weeks. This is the month for Dr. Seuss, so.
Thank you. Dr. Tinsley?
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Mr. Andrews? Mr. DePaul?
I think he
I think you have to leave.
Yeah.
Italy, all right. So I'll be out of service from March 9th through March 16th. Dr. Day will be in person. He'll be there at the breakfast. Finance and Facilities, Mr. Connor will be joining as a third member. You guys will elect your chair. The meeting has canceled on March 11th, so you'll reschedule it. Discipline Data Review Committee is March 13th at 3:30. Next school board work session, March 18th, which will basically be a closed session after we do the Pledge of Allegiance. LACR, March 18th at 3:30. Are we still doing it on that day? March 18th, 3:30?
Yes.
Yeah. Academic Success Committee, March 25th at 3:30. And the next school board meeting, and that's effect, April 1st at 5 p.m. right here. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.